My wife sent a lawyer text with a wave emoji and I silently froze her accounts, disabled utilities, repossessed her car, and secured the house today. It didn't hit like a punch. It hit like a switch flipping. 1 second I was standing in my workshop, wiping grease off my hands after fixing the damn dryer she'd overstuffed again. The next I was staring at my phone like it had personally insulted my intelligence. A little blue bubble. I'll contact you through my lawyer from now on. And just in case the words didn't drip enough arrogance, she added that smug little wave emoji. You know the one. Tiny hand, pink palm, like she was sending me off to war with a juice box and a pat on the head. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds, blinking. The smell of burnt lint clung to my jacket. The house I paid for, hummed around me. Fridge running, furnace kicking in. Alexa politely reminding no one to water the plants. Her plants. I smiled. Wider than I had in months, maybe years. Not the kind of smile you share with company, the kind you reserve for when something inside you quietly and irrevocably breaks, and the part that cared rolls over and dies without so much as a funeral. Sure, I muttered. Not please, let's talk. Not you'll regret this. Just sure. I tapped the contact card she'd attached. Some fresh-faced idiot from a downtown firm that probably charged $400 an hour to send passive-aggressive emails about who forgot to refill the Brita. Fine. She wanted to escalate. I'd respond with all the courtesy of a man with nothing left to lose and everything left to shut off. I tossed the rag onto the workbench and walked upstairs. Past the photos on the walls she insisted we frame. Photos where my smile never quite reached my eyes once I looked close enough. Past the bookshelf she filled with self-actualization books she never actually read. Past the guest bedroom she'd slowly started treating like a second closet, stashing overnight bags she thought I hadn't noticed. Into the office. My domain. No crystals, no vision boards, just a battered desk, a humming desktop tower, and a spreadsheet I updated every quarter. Accounts, assets, liabilities, boring stuff. Stuff she never bothered to understand, because understanding it would mean understanding just how fragile her new independence really was. I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and double-clicked the file. First tab, credit cards, every one of them in my name. Some authorized users, sure, but primary? Darren Harlow, not Lori. Second tab, utilities. Electric, gas, water, Wi-Fi, streaming services, even the bloody thermostat app. All linked to one account. Mine. Third tab, vehicles. Her car leased through my employer's benefit program. Insurance? My group policy. Fourth tab, health care. She was an add-on, a dependent. Hadn't contributed a dime toward premium since she quit her last too stressful job 5 years ago. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to drive across town waving evidence. I just needed to click. One by one, my fingers started moving. Freeze card. Pause subscription. Disable autopay. Suspend insurance. Each click a quiet funeral for the life she thought she could keep while cutting me out like an expired coupon. Alexa's voice floated up the stairs. Reminder, pay water bill. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not loud, not manic, just cold. Because Lori thought sending that text made her powerful. All it really did was hand me the perfect excuse to unplug her world at the roots. And the best part? She'd asked for it in writing. I didn't have to wonder where she was. Hell, I didn't even have to dig. She practically breadcrumbed the entire affair right into my lap like she was daring me to connect the dots. The sudden work emergencies at 9:30 p.m., the gas receipts tucked into the console of her car, gas stations nowhere near her office but conveniently close to the Marriott off exit 14, the hotel charges that showed up on the statement of the card I paid off every month, the one she thought I never checked because you're too tired after work. Yeah, Lori, I was tired. Just not the way you thought. The late-night texts weren't even the worst part. She wasn't clever enough to delete them properly. Half of Shane's side of the conversation would still pop up in the notification preview when her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Can't wait to see you again. Sent while she was upstairs pretending to meditate. I could have played detective, confronted her, screamed, sobbed, waved the evidence around, like a demented magician pulling handkerchiefs from a hat. But that would have given her exactly what she wanted. A messy, emotional excuse to paint herself as the wounded party. No. I was smarter than that. Smarter than her. Smarter than Shane, who, from what I gathered from his public LinkedIn profile, was the kind of guy who thought being a regional sales lead for low-end tech support software made him an entrepreneur. The best part? I didn't have to prove a damn thing in court. Because thanks to that smug little all-contact through my lawyer stunt, Lori had just made it abundantly clear that we were no longer a team. And that meant every account that said Darren Harlow, primary account holder, was mine to manage, close, or suspend without so much as a courtesy text. Every bill that came addressed to me was now a bill I could decide whether or not to pay. Every comfort she enjoyed, from her Hulu subscription to her climate-controlled car seat, was powered by the man she just told to go through proper channels. So I opened more than a spreadsheet. I opened a switchboard. A grid of lines she thought she could walk away from without consequences. And while she was busy swapping flirtatious DMs with a mid-tier nobody, I was sitting at Command Central looking at the entire infrastructure of her comfortable little rebellion. Bank accounts, utilities, car insurance, cell phones, Netflix passwords. And realizing she wasn't powerful. She was plugged into me. And now, click by click, I could unplug her. Not with shouting, not with accusations, just with the same cold efficiency she thought she had the monopoly on. She thought cutting off communication would silence me. All she really did was open the gates for the quietest, cleanest demolition job she'd never see coming. And I wasn't even mad about it. I was liberated. It's funny how fast your hands move when your heart finally gives up pretending it's still attached. I opened the spreadsheet again, that boring old beast I'd updated out of habit every quarter. The same one Lori had rolled her eyes at every time I stayed up balancing numbers instead of binge-watching garbage TV with her. "Relax for once," she used to say, dragging me toward the couch. "You're always so uptight about money." Yeah, turns out being uptight about money was about to make this next part surgical. First tab, credit cards. 5 cards, 2 major ones. 3 store accounts, furniture, electronics, department store junk she thought made her self-care aesthetic look effortless. All primary under me. Authorized user access. Click. Freeze. Done. If she tried to tap her shiny little platinum card at Target today, she'd get a decline message faster than Shane could type "you up" after 2 beers. Second tab, utilities, water, electric, gas, Wi-Fi, home security, all on autopay from my bank. I opened the account management portals, every single one, and switched the payment method to manual. Then I let the next due dates roll toward oblivion. They wouldn't cut off overnight. No, utilities are polite like that. But within 72 hours, lights out, sweetheart. Third tab, streaming, phone lines, subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Disney+, HBO Max. Not one service in her name. I started mass canceling them like I was launching a Black Friday sale on her dignity. The cell phones. Family plan. Sure. Except the primary holder? Hi. That's me. Controlled the fate of every line. 2 clicks and her phone was pending disconnection. Fourth tab. Vehicles. Her precious little lease. A candy red Audi she loved to flaunt when she drove to her yoga brunches and networking mixers. It sat snugly under the fleet benefits I earned after 20 years of loyal contracting. Insurance? Mine. And with one request through my employee portal, I flagged it. Pending termination due to separation proceedings. Translation: if insurance lapses, leaseholder can repossess the vehicle. Fifth tab, healthcare. Oh, Lori. You thought you could just float through on my premium policy forever. Sweetheart, no. I went into the HR portal, navigated the life changes section, and clicked separation, immediate dependent removal. No more therapy bills, urgent care visits, spa discount codes. On my dime. Every single thing. The Wi-Fi she streamed her morning podcasts on. The thermostat she adjusted from her phone app. The grocery store discount she scanned on her loyalty app. The very car she parked sideways in our driveway like a trophy. All of it ran through me. My fingers moved fast, methodical, no rage, no hesitation. Just a cold satisfaction blooming in my chest like the first sip of bourbon after a brutal winter day. It wasn't revenge. It was accounting. Reckoning. And if she wanted distance? Oh, honey, she was about to get left on an island. No heat, no phone, no ride, no backup plan. Because every little luxury she took for granted wasn't an entitlement. It was a connection. And when she thought she could sever it with a lawyer's name and a waving emoji, all she really did was hand me the scissors. And now? Snip. The email landed at exactly 10:12 a.m. Like they thought sending it before lunch would somehow make it more intimidating. Subject: immediate action requested regarding financial accounts. From Jenna L. Fry, Associate Attorney, Sterling and Knox. It was wrapped in all the usual fluff, Per our client's request, in the spirit of good faith, please refrain from accessing or altering joint financial structures until equitable division is achieved. Joint financial structures, equitable division. They tossed around those words like confetti at a funeral they hadn't realized was already over. I leaned back in my chair, sipping lukewarm coffee, rereading it twice just to savor the stupidity. Joint financial structures? Cute. I clicked reply and typed exactly one sentence. There are no joint accounts. Everything is mine. No caps lock, no exclamation points, no long paragraphs pleading for fairness or reminding them about Shane and his motel loyalty points. Then, like a chef plating the final course of a last meal, I attached every shred of documentation. Screenshots of utility accounts all in my name, copies of credit card statements, mine, proof of car lease registration, mine, insurance policies, mine, streaming service plan, mine, thermostat account login, mine, 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 mine. Each attachment its own little coffin nail. Each file another nail for Lori's lawyer to hammer down while trying not to sweat through their Banana Republic blazer. I clicked send. No delay. No second guessing. And then, silence. No rapid-fire rebuttal. No indignant follow-up. No we respectfully disagree or this is unacceptable. Just nothing. Which told me everything. Because her lawyer, who probably strutted into their conference room with a whiteboard titled How We Destroy Darren Harlow, had just realized their client wasn't standing on solid ground. She was wading through quicksand, and she hadn't even packed a rope. I pictured the moment in their office. Jenna L. Fry scrolling through the attachments, feeling her mouth go dry, maybe even rubbing her temples, trying to figure out how to explain to Lori, "Princess, cut me off because I'm too young to settle," that she hadn't married a fool. She'd married a man who planned for everything. Even this, especially this. The whole dynamic shifted in a heartbeat. No longer was I the desperate husband trying to cling to a crumbling marriage. No, I was the bank, the landlord, the utility company, the gatekeeper. The man who controlled every faucet, every outlet, every cell signal she needed to live the shiny, independent life she thought was just waiting for her once she hit send on that stupid text. I didn't even bother watching the read receipt pop up. I closed my laptop, stood up, stretched like a man at the end of a long, productive day. Outside, the autumn air was crisp. Inside, the heat hummed contentedly through the vents. My vents. I poured another cup of coffee, slower this time, savoring it. Because the first real battle was already over, and the other side didn't even know they'd already surrendered. She came back on a Tuesday. Not to talk, not to apologize. Just to grab a coat. Maybe a few toiletries. Maybe to peacock around her house and reassure herself she was still in control. That the lawyer's text had somehow declared squatters' rights over a life she hadn't earned in a decade. She parked crooked in the driveway, of course she did, and walked in like she still had jurisdiction. The thermostat chirped when she tapped it. Then, nothing. No warmth, no familiar hum of the ducts kicking in. She pressed it again. Held it, shook it. System offline. That little screen, once glowing with cozy, catered convenience, now stared back at her like an unplugged tombstone. She went to check the Wi-Fi. Because obviously the smart thermostat needed connection, right? No network found. She blinked. Reset the router. Waited. Still nothing. Her phone buzzed. It wasn't an email from Jenna the attorney. It was a push notification from her streaming app. Unable to connect to your account. Please verify your subscription. Then, like divine choreography, her stomach growled. She grabbed her coat, muttered something bitter under her breath, and stormed out. 10 minutes later, she was at the checkout line at the organic grocery store she swore she couldn't live without. She tried the card. My card. Declined. She tried it again. Declined. She smiled at the cashier like it was some silly mistake. Pulled out a backup. The Nordstrom Visa I hadn't remembered she even kept. Declined. The cashier tilted her head. Do you have another method of payment? Lori opened her banking app. Every account was locked. Every single one. She didn't panic yet. She did what any independent, self-actualized woman in her situation would do. She called Shane, and Shane offered to Venmo her $80. She needed $800 just to cover the overdue car insurance, the food, and maybe some mobile data before that got cut too. He said, "Babe, I've got rent this week. I thought you said your guy had money." She hung up before he finished the sentence. That's when she texted me. "What the hell are you doing?" No, hey. No, can we talk? Just pure entitlement, like I was some service provider she could scream at because her emotional HVAC unit had a malfunction. I didn't hesitate. I didn't even look at the message more than once. I just typed, "All contact through your lawyer, remember?" Sent. That was it. No sarcasm, no venom, no lecture. Just her own words served back, cold and lifeless, like the house she'd returned to. I stood in my new apartment, barefoot on warm hardwood, sipping black coffee I brewed on a schedule she never knew existed. The heat was perfect. The Wi-Fi was strong. My life calm. Because the wires she tried to cut were never hers. She just forgot who paid the electric bill that powered her rebellion. She probably thought the heat going out was some glitch, a bill missed by accident, a momentary hiccup in the finely tuned machine that had always hummed along in the background while she played socialite on top. But the truth? The machine was me. And now that I'd pulled the plug, the unraveling had only begun. The next morning, before the sun had fully burned through the frost on the windshield of her Audi, the tow truck arrived. I'd already made the call to the leaseholder, flagged the policy as inactive due to loss of insurance coverage. Her name wasn't on the contract. Mine was. And without active insurance to the terms of the lease, the vehicle was no longer legally in her possession. The dealership didn't blink. They dispatched a truck immediately. The guy loaded it up while Lori was still inside, probably boiling water on the stove because the electric kettle didn't work without power. I imagine her expression as she ran outside in those ridiculous boots, half-zipped coat, phone in hand, only to watch the car she used to brag about on Instagram get winched up like evidence at a crime scene. She tried to call me. Her phone lit up, then displayed a cheerful little message. "Service unavailable. Contact your provider." Well, I was the provider, and I wasn't taking calls. She stormed back inside, fuming, trying to connect to Wi-Fi so she could FaceTime Jenna, or maybe Shane, still believing she had options. But the router was down, and the streaming apps blocked. Each login attempt met with the same passive-aggressive screen. No account found. "Would you like to start a free trial?" She clicked reset password. It went to my email. Even the thermostat. Yes, the same one she once programmed to sunrise meditation mode at 6:15 every morning, now sat locked behind an account she couldn't access. No password recovery, no tech support hotline, no fix. She'd always mocked how I labeled folders on my desktop, how I had spreadsheets titled Q1 financials and appliance warranty expirations. Now she was living in the consequence of every tab she never clicked. Even her emails were compromised, not through hacking. No, that would be beneath me. But she'd been using our shared cable provider bundled email address, the one tied to the internet plan I canceled. Goodbye inbox. She went to her gym, the one she swore she needed to stay sane. They turned her away. The auto draft had bounced. They'd already moved her off the access list. She tried to Uber to Shane's place. No ride. Her card declined again. Even Shane, that loyal caveman, was now responding to her texts with slower and slower replies. Eventually, he'd just stop altogether. Because, let's face it, she didn't come with batteries included. The version of herself she presented to the world had always been powered by the infrastructure I built quietly, methodically, without ever demanding applause. And now that I'd taken my hand off the lever, she was just a mannequin in designer jeans wandering around a cold, quiet house she didn't own, using a disconnected phone to scream at people who weren't listening. The lights were still off, but now, for the first time, she could feel the dark. Day 3 was when the silence started to feel expensive for them. Up until that point, I figured they'd play it tough, hit me with buzzwords like non-compliance or temporary relief motion. I expected jargon, maybe even a summons if Lori could scrape together enough money to fund the fantasy, that this was a war she could still win. But instead, I got a voicemail, not even from Jenna the cocky associate who sent that first email laced with confidence and copy-paste legalese. Nope. This one came from someone else, older, slower, with a voice like overcooked oatmeal trying to sound calm under pressure. "Hi, Mr. Harlow. This is Douglas Myers calling on behalf of Miss Frey's office. I'm stepping in to assist with the mediation process." A pause. "We understand there have been some disruptions, and our client is requesting, purely in the spirit of cooperation, that essential utilities be restored to the residents while we continue negotiations. Another pause. He cleared his throat. We'd like to resolve this quickly and peacefully. If you could contact us at your earliest convenience, we'd appreciate the opportunity to come to an agreement without further complications. Complications. That's what they were calling it now. No mention of the initial email threatening legal action. No more talk of equitable division. Just a polite old man asking if the lights could please come back on, sir. I played the message twice, not because I didn't catch it the first time, but because I wanted to hear it in stereo. The subtle sound of surrender echoing out of their high-rise conference room. They had clearly expected a reaction, a fight, a guilt trip, maybe even a breakdown. What they didn't expect was precision. They didn't expect that when Lori hit send on that lawyer text, I'd treat it like a business transaction. And they sure as hell didn't expect me to respect her wishes so literally. I opened my laptop, typed the new message. Subject, utility concerns. Body. For your client's request, please direct all communication through my legal representative. I trust we'll resolve this professionally during mediation. Simple. Cordial. Exactly the kind of cold courtesy they now wish Lori had practiced before nuking her own house of cards. I attached the contact info for my attorney, who, unlike Jenna, had been a silent partner in this the whole time. A quiet old shark who once told me over bourbon that the best courtroom wins come from letting the other side panic first. I hit send. No follow-up, no voicemail, just a quiet ping from my inbox confirming receipt. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the late afternoon sun dipping behind the city skyline. Somewhere in the cold, dark house she used to call hers, Lori was probably wrapped in a blanket, phone dead, teeth clenched, wondering why the man she ghosted with legal threats hadn't rushed to her rescue. But this wasn't a rescue. This was compliance. She asked for lawyers. She got them. And now they were begging me to be human again. Too late. I heard the knock before I saw her. 3 short raps against the metal frame of the workshop door. Tentative, like she half expected it to open itself. I was underneath a generator housing, elbow deep in wiring grease, tightening a bolt that had been loose since, before her lawyer sent that smug little declaration of war. I didn't rush. I finished the turn, set the wrench down with surgical care, and rolled out from under the unit like a man completely unbothered by ghosts in daylight. And there she was, Lori. No makeup, no filters, no faux confidence stitched into overpriced athleisure. Just cold, red-rimmed eyes, and one of my old sweatshirts she used to wear to bed, back when our silence wasn't weaponized yet. Her voice cracked. You're being cruel. Not sorry. Not I shouldn't have sent that text. Not even, can we talk? Just a 6-word accusation hurled from behind tear-glossed lashes, as if the pain on her face was something I had manufactured, like a feature I forgot to beta test before deploying revenge. I wiped my hands on a towel, methodically, calmly. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't move toward her. I just looked at her and said, "You said you wanted distance." She blinked. "You said you wanted a clean break." Nothing. "You didn't want to talk." Silence. "You wanted Shane." Her eyes dropped. "And now you want water, power, heat, all the little things that made this house run. You want the comfort without the man you threw away for protein shakes and hotel quickies." I watched her throat move, like she was trying to swallow the shame, but it wouldn't go down. She hadn't expected this version of me, the man who could speak truth without trembling, who didn't need to shout because he already won. She looked around the shop like it might offer her some alternative script, some backup plan, saw the rows of labeled bins, the workbench I built with my father's hands. She was standing in the cathedral of everything she took for granted, and now realized she never understood. "This is where you disappear to," she whispered. "This is where I build, Lori." I picked up the wrench again, held it, looked her dead in the eye. "You don't have to be here." That did it. She turned, slow, shoulders folding inward like collapsing scaffolding. She walked back toward her car, not the Audi, of course. That was already gone. She'd Ubered here, or maybe begged a friend, or Shane. I didn't watch her leave. I just listened to the crunch of gravel under her shoes and the hollow sound of silence returning. No apology, no grand gesture, just a woman who finally realized the furnace wasn't broken. She was. And the warmth she craved wasn't from the heater. It was from the man who stopped pretending to be her safety net. I got back under the generator. Turned the bolt, 2 more clicks. Tight. Perfect. They waited until Friday. Like stalling until the end of the week would soften the pitch. Like time had made me reasonable, or desperate. They didn't realize I wasn't the one bleeding resources every hour this dragged on. The offer came through my lawyer in a glossy PDF formatted like they'd already imagined how proud Lori would read it aloud to her friends at brunch. Proposal for mediation resolution. 50/50th split of assets. Modest alimony for a period of 3 years. Lori retains primary residence. Darren retains business assets and vehicle. It even had a line about maintaining amicable post-marital relations. I laughed so hard my lawyer choked on his coffee. They actually think she's walking away with the house? I asked, already opening a new folder on my desktop. Oh, I said. They want to negotiate? Then let's start with the facts. I crafted my response with the same care I used to build our home's foundation. The same one Lori now believed she could redecorate in court filings. My counteroffer. Simple. I keep the house. It's in my name, purchased before the marriage, paid off with earnings from a career she never supported. No alimony, she's capable of work. Choosing not to isn't a disability. She gets the car if she settles the balance in full before title transfer. Payments resume when she remembers how employment works. Then, with the grace of a man who doesn't bluff, I attached 6 months of hotel receipts, itemized cell phone records showing late-night calls to Shane, a contact saved under Zumba Coach, GPS pings from her phone log through our joint security app, a time-stamped photo of her kissing Shane in the parking garage beneath her office. All cataloged, all documented, all admissible. My lawyer clicked send with a grin. How long until they fold? Give it an hour, I said. It took 43 minutes. At 4:12 p.m., a new email popped in from Jenna. No subject line. 1 sentence. We are withdrawing the proposed terms and will confer with our client regarding next steps. Translation. Lori saw the house of cards teetering, and for the first time she realized I wasn't trying to win. I'd already won. Quietly, legally, irrevocably. The court wouldn't see a bitter husband. They'd see a man methodically protecting his assets from a self-inflicted collapse. She threw the first stone. I built a castle with the rubble. And now she was stuck outside, asking if she could at least keep the driveway. It was inevitable. You could practically set a timer on a guy like Shane. All abs and ambition, no spine. He was fun when the wine was chilled, the lights were low, and someone else was paying for the scented candles. But when the bills started arriving with her name on them, and no Darren in the fine print, Shane's loyalty evaporated faster than her car insurance. From what I gathered, thanks to a couple of mutual acquaintances who still sent me screenshots, out of sheer pettiness, it started with a, "Hey babe, just until my next paycheck." Then, "My accounts are frozen too." Weird, right? Followed by complete radio silence. When she finally tried to call him, it went straight to voicemail. She texted, "Read." No reply, then blocked. Her lawyer stopped responding days ago. Shane ghosted her. And suddenly Lori found herself, just as she had wished, completely alone. She reached out to a friend of ours, technically her friend, though let's be honest, most of them liked me better once the real Lori showed up in daylight. That friend, with all the grace of a woman who knew she was being pulled into a soap opera, forwarded me a voice memo Lori had sent her. He said he thought I had money, that I was rich, that I had the house. I never said that. I just didn't correct him. Of course she didn't. She let him think I was some boring, checked-out husband who sat in a recliner while she quietly plotted a glittery exit. That the cars, the house, the perfectly chilled rose in the wine fridge were all her choices, her domain. But Shane wasn't an idiot. Well, he wasn't smart either. He was just the kind of guy who could spot a sinking ship and jump before it fully tipped. And when her credit card started bouncing, when she had to borrow money to pay the minimum balance just to buy a plane ticket to a friend's wedding in Napa, that's when the illusion cracked. He told mutual friends, some of whom were mine, some hers, most now just entertained. She told me she was rich. Turns out she was just married to someone who was. Brutal, efficient, accurate. The truth of it stung worse than anything I could have said. Because it didn't come from me. It came from the man she traded me for. The one who smiled in gym mirrors and called himself a consultant, but couldn't float her a week of utilities when the heat went out. And now she was the woman sleeping in a cold house she didn't own, on a mattress she didn't pay for, eating takeout from the one card that hadn't been shut down yet. While I was finishing bourbon number 2 in a warm, quiet place I bought with the paycheck she once called too steady. She played the wrong game with the wrong man, and now she'd been left holding her own empty hand. She walked into that courtroom trying to look collected, but I could see the panic stitched into every thread of the outfit she borrowed. Not her usual designer coat, not the polished heels. Just a too-tight blazer that used to belong to her sister. I recognized it from a family funeral 5 years ago, and slacks that bunched at the ankles like defeat. No ring, no shame. She sat across from me, eyes forward, jaw clenched like she thought it made her look unbothered. But I noticed her thumb twitching over her palm like she wanted to be holding a phone that no longer worked. My attorney didn't speak much. He didn't need to, because the documents did all the shouting. Bank records, utility bills, account ownership, insurance plans, property deeds, phone logs, hotel receipts. We presented it all with the calm efficiency of an accountant tallying receipts after a clearance sale. The judge didn't rush. He took his time. First, he asked her about employment. She said she was in between projects. He asked when she last filed an income tax return with personal earnings. She froze, blinked, then muttered, 2016. His pen stopped moving. Then he asked about living expenses, how she paid for groceries, gas, utilities. She started to explain, stumbled, then said she had support from friends. The courtroom didn't laugh, but the silence that followed made it worse. When it came time for her lawyer to make a plea for alimony and asset division, he tried. God, he really tried. Cited emotional labor, time invested in the marriage, contribution to household stability. The judge skimmed the counterclaim, saw the notarized proof that every major asset, house, vehicles, accounts, was acquired before marriage or under my sole name. Then he paused at the file folder, labeled Infidelity Timeline, which my lawyer slid across the bench with the quiet confidence of a man who'd already seen the end of the movie. There were photos, timestamps, screenshots of her bragging to friends about finally being free of a man who couldn't match her energy. Yeah. The court loved that one. The ruling wasn't long. Mr. Harlow retains all primary assets, no alimony awarded. Vehicle returned to leaseholder. Ms. Harlow granted a modest separation settlement of $5,000 payable in 2 installments. That was it. No fireworks, no grand monologue. Just numbers, orders, finality. Lori didn't cry. She just stared down at the table like the wood grain would somehow split open and swallow her before she had to walk out of that room with nothing. And then, just before the clerk asked us to rise, her lawyer leaned toward her and whispered, just loud enough for me to catch, I told you not to send that text. The emoji wave. That stupid little message that was supposed to be her mic drop. It ended up being her anchor. She stood, knees stiff, and didn't look back as she left the room. Just adjusted her sister's borrowed blazer and walked out like a job applicant who already knew she wouldn't be getting a call back. Me? I nodded to the judge, shook my lawyer's hand, and walked into the hallway with the quiet, unshakable clarity of a man who survived the storm without ever raising his voice. She wanted a war. She got a reckoning. It was one of those perfect winter evenings. Crisp air outside, wood fire calm inside, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but earned. The house, my house, hummed quietly, radiators doing their job, Spotify playing a slow jazz track I didn't have to justify to anyone. No interruptions, no sighs from across the couch, no passive-aggressive swipes disguised as conversation. Just me. In peace. I tossed my keys into the tray by the door, kicked off my boots, and hung up my coat on the same hook that used to hold Lori's. That hook had been empty for months now. She took everything else with her when she left. Except the dignity. Apparently that stayed. The mail was sitting on the console table. I flipped through it absently. Utility statements, paid, a flyer for a local roofing service, recycled, and then one envelope, white, standard, typed return address, Sterling and Knox LLP. The lawyer's office. No anticipation, no dread, just curiosity, like opening a fortune cookie after a meal you already enjoyed. Inside was a single sheet. No official tone. No legal threats this time. Just desperation dressed in formality. Mr. Harlow, on behalf of our client, we are requesting a temporary reinstatement of phone and utility services connected to the residence previously shared. Our client is in the process of securing new accommodations and would appreciate access to basic services during this transition. She expresses regret for any previous missteps and wishes to resolve this amicably. Sincerely, Jenna L. Fry, Associate Counsel. I stared at it. Not in anger, not even in disbelief. Just calm recognition. She'd circled back. All that posture, all that fire, down to this, a plea to plug her back into the very life she ripped herself out of. I held the paper in my hand for a moment longer, then set it on the edge of the table. Opened my phone, drafted a reply, then stopped. I didn't owe a reply. She didn't want contact. She wanted convenience. And I'd stopped offering that the moment she weaponized my silence and thought she could use lawyers like remote controls. I deleted the draft, deleted the email, deleted her number again, for good measure. Then I turned toward the thermostat. 3 simple taps. Heat on, fan, auto, temperature, 73 degree. Warmth spread through the house. Not for her. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Because the whole time she thought she held the switch, when she waved that smug little emoji and played Queen of Detachment, she never realized the grid she unplugged herself from was mine. Every comfort, every password, every piece of power. She never owned any of it. She just borrowed it. And when she decided she didn't need the man, she found out too late she couldn't live without the current. So I sat down, took a sip of warm bourbon, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. No texts, no lawyers, no apology that mattered. Just the sound of a house that answered only to me now. She wanted a war. She got a reckoning. And in the end, the quiet was the loudest sound she ever heard.